Yo, dig this. Enjoy part 2 of my conversation with Antwuan Hill. If you've not listened to part 1, go back to where you got this one and listen to part 1 first. It's a good one. Welcome to Impact and Fulfillment with Coach Mike D, where you'll gain practical wisdom and dynamic insight from amazing conversations to live your best life. Well, hold on. You're touching on one component, but then you also didn't hit on the power of scarcity, right? So it's utilized in like the sneaker. I'm not a sneakerhead, but I watch a lot of stuff to learn how people understand and how they move, so I can rethink how I move, right? But like in sneaker culture, when we were kids, when Jordans came out, you could go to Foot Locker and buy Jordans because it was just like they mass produced Jordans. That was just.
But you had to do it the day of, because if you did, and they normally come out on a Tuesday. If you
that's right,
Wednesday or the weekend, they'd be
sold out. Well, initially, but then like a couple weeks later, after everybody got them, then they get another shipment in, and then you could go to Foot Locker and pretty much buy the Jordans when you wanted them. Like they were there. It was not. They didn't play this scarcity game. But now, when one of my brothers used to work in one of the retail stores, and he would say when the Jordan release came out, in the mall, each store in the mall would only get like 15 or 20 pair, right? It was like a very limited amount, but the whole point of creating this level of scarcity, which then created this whole resale market where whatever the retail price is, it then goes up, but it was the restriction of the supply, which then created this demand, and now everybody's chomping at the bit to get in. And so I think the exclusivity agreement was twofold. One, it limited the number so they could work the kinks out. Right.
Yeah.
But then they also created scarcity, and they created this notion of everybody wants in. It actually happened as well during the pandemic. Now this thing has fallen off, but remember Clubhouse?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Remember Clubhouse was like this whole phenomenon that everybody wanted in. You had to be Apple, and I'm team Android, so I never got in on Clubhouse. But everybody was hitting me up and sending me the invites because you had to be invited. And you had to be an Apple person. So that created this crazy buzz for Clubhouse, right? And again, now once the pandemic kind of ended, then it fizzled as well. But it was that notion of scarcity. Everybody wanted in. But then when it opened up to everybody, then nobody wanted it anymore. So, yeah. Apple
and sometimes that's industry specific.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is like in transportation, everybody travels.
Yes, 100%.
So it's not like, oh, you got to be the first to get in. It's like, no, everybody still needs to travel. Everybody still needs to move around, point A to point B and all that stuff. Now, once you get into that, then you can set limitations on who has access to this particular portion of that. But in this industry, I know that critical mass is already there. It just needs to be redirected. Like I haven't invented anything that didn't exist. Transportation existed.
Yeah, it's been
people still pay for car service to go from point A to point B. Didn't do anything different. People are used to paying for subscription services. Didn't invent anything there. What I'm doing, I'm combining those two resources together and now making it available to the mass public. So now I'm not creating a new marketplace. I'm just redirecting an already existing marketplace.
Hold on, so it's interesting. So you talk, and when you were talking critical mass, I'm sitting, my wheels are turning.
Oh yeah, back to critical mass. But go ahead.
No, I'm just like, as you were talking about that, it's just like I'm thinking about what you're doing, and strategically speaking, is the goal critical mass, or is the goal really to have such high demand that you can, from a business perspective, either increase your margins or something, because some people, it's kind of like, Walmart is humongous volume and very low margin, right? But because they got $100 billion in daily transactions, they can skim off 0.5% off of that 100 billion in transaction, and they're good because of the volume. Very few people have the volume that Walmart or Amazon does, so they have to play on margin. So their whole thing is, it's not about critical mass of so many people and getting slim margin. It's about how do I maximize my margin with not as huge of a bucket of customers. And I think it's interesting perspective because you're talking about a premium service and you're also talking about demographics when it comes to the business community or typically higher net worth individuals in which they are less price sensitive to what they want. And so to that point, it flows more to this whole notion of maybe is it more so about this thing that all these people want but can't have versus this notion of it's something that a lot of people have access to. What are your thoughts?
It's two-part and this can segue into a whole nother thing.
Oh yeah, I love it. This is how we roll.
Yeah, the reason why I talk about critical thinking is, and I get to that in a second, but it goes back to what you mentioned, the chicken or the egg. I've been known, my company has been known as an entity that provides premium services for an exclusive group of people. Meaning right now, I got some clients that are using my services today, and those services costing them $1,600. That's premium and exclusivity because everybody can afford $1,600 a day for car service. I mentioned that some of the wealthiest people in the world were clients of mine. And we reached out to them. We've been able to grow by being a premium service with some measure of exclusivity. Now, my goals and my aspirations are to do a whole lot of things in the philanthropy space. I can't necessarily get there by the methods that I'm doing now.
Okay, gotcha.
So, I was mistakenly of the notion that you grow a business and you grow it up for years and years and years. And then when you get older, you give it to your children and then they grow it and they expand on it like a mom and pop store. No, until somebody very wealthy told me, no, the goal of business is to exit the business.
Absolutely.
Either via going public or selling it. And then said, because once you do that, then you can do whatever you want to do in whatever space you want to do it. And I know the goals and the things that we want to do, like I said, from a charitable standpoint that we can't necessarily do now because everything that we're doing, it provides, stability for our company, stability for my family, but it's not going to get me to that point. The critical mass portion of it is that the critical mass,
I got you.
And what I'm doing is inevitable.
I got you.
And the reason why I say it's inevitable, when Elon Musk was in his garage building things for SpaceX, before Tesla came about and all that stuff, I remember they showed this thing where he first made his first $1 billion and he went and got it was a McLaren or something. I forgot what kind of car it was. But he had to deliver to his house. He was like, man, this is the pinnacle. This is what I ever wanted. Or even watch Super Pump and watch how Travis Kalanick grew an idea. Him and his partners grew an idea to this global brand.
Yes.
Or Apple. All of that. I realized that I am currently in the same space that they were in. I am Jeff Bezos in his little office in 1996. I am Bill Gates in his garage in 1982. And I know what I'm in front of. The reason why I know what I'm in front of, because Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, they're not the busiest airport in the world. Atlanta, Georgia, Hartsfield is in business. LAX, people get picked up and dropped off at LAX every day, right? Black car service take people to LAX every day and drop them off, pick them up and drop them off. Taxis pick up and drop off people at LAX every day. Uber picks up and drop off people at LAX. Lyft, your cousin, your mom and them pick you up and drop you off at LAX every day.
Absolutely.
How many people you think get picked up and dropped off at LAX every day?
Every day, probably what? 250,000.
Okay, fair enough.
Hmm.
I'm gonna take away taxis. I'm gonna take away Lyft. I'm gonna take away mom and pops and cousins and uncles and spouses. I'm gonna take away limousine companies. I'm gonna take away public transportation. I'm gonna take away pickups.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna take away drop-offs. Uber in itself, one entity, only doing pickups at LAX every single day. They pick up 30,000 people.
Yeah. All right. And that's just a regular Tuesday. This is not
Regular Tuesday. And
This
that's
ain't
just
Christmas.
one entity, and that's
This
just
ain't.
pickups. That's not drop-offs. That's not Lyft taxis.
That's just pickups. Yeah.
It's pickups for one entity. What I am doing is I'm taking all those pickups at LAX every day and saying, okay, you're paying for transportation. You're paying X amount of dollars for transportation. This is the service that you're getting with that transportation.
Okay.
Now I'm going to elevate your experience and lower your cost. What are you going to choose?
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. If you can lower the cost and raise the expectation, I mean, that's a no-brainer. It's like it's a win-win for the consumer.
So I know I am in front of this critical mass space that I'm about to enter into.
Mm-hmm. Well, but it also is going back to what you were saying before, I tap into like motivation. And so it sounds as if the perspective of this is, how do I create this massively robust entity that does a whole lot, that has a ridiculously high valuation, so that either it can go public or it can get acquired, because my ultimate heart is about, I really want to dive into various philanthropic endeavors.
Yes. So what I want to do, you remember, and she probably ain't gonna, she may, no, I don't think she have anything with me saying her name. You remember Lori Butler?
Lori Butler,
She was in UT. I think she was in grad school at UT.
Okay.
Now she's in, I forget where she's at. I think she's in Texas.
Oh, you talking about L? Yeah, that's Lamecia Butler.
I mean, Lamecia Butler. I don't know.
Yeah. That's my girl. That's my home girl. Yep, good people.
She gonna get mad.
She's in Texas. Shout out to Lamecia. L, what up?
I don't know why I said Lori.
Yeah, Lamecia. Yep.
Hold
on. Sidebar. It's Lamecia Butler McFarland. She's married.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So press that part out. So you know my girl Lamecia, right?
Yeah.
No, I remember seeing something, and when it was either Katrina or the pandemic. I think it was Katrina, and she worked in an entity where they were providing relief for the victims of Katrina.
Okay.
But what they had to go and do and vet these entities to make sure that they are in need of and could use the funds from FEMA.
Okay.
And so you have a company that submit an application like, hey, we were affected by Katrina. We need $1 million to pick up our operations because we was doing this and we were providing food for the homeless and all this stuff. And then they would go and vet and do their research and all this stuff. I reached out to Lamecia a few years ago, and I said, I want to become an entity where we provide resources for a different entity every day for a whole year. Meaning, if you are a women's shelter in Scotland, Oregon, or if you are a homeless shelter in Memphis, Tennessee, or if you are a battered children's place in Arkansas, or wherever you are, and your annual budget is $100,000, I want to be able to provide that entity in Arkansas with their annual budget Monday. Tuesday, go to another place and provide the annual budget Tuesday, Wednesday, so forth and so on. And I said I needed somebody who has experience in going and vetting these organizations who could start up. And I told her my concept, and she fell in love with it. Like, yeah, she would be willing to help. I didn't know the pandemic was happening, but that was for fortuitous occasion that it did happen when it happened. But anyway, now that we still have our eyes set on that, that's still something that we want to do. And this critical mass is going to give us the ability to exit this company, be it public or be it via sale, so that we could fund those things.
So your ultimate goal is to, in essence, fund various charitable endeavors and fund their full annual budget. And
we want to take $100,000 and for 365 days give $100,000 to 365 different organizations.
So you just need 3.65 million. Is that correct?
No.
165. No, 100,000 times 10 is million.
That's 10 days.
Yeah, that's just 10 days. Oh yeah, so you need 36.5 million, right? Am I correct?
Need about $32 million.
Oh, it's just 365.
Yeah. Well, 36.5 million, yes.
Yeah. So my math was off.
It's okay.
You can tell I went to Georgia Tech, huh?
So
Well, you see my GPA from Georgia Tech, you realize that joker probably his math about right.
So $36 million is a lot of money, but $36 million is not a lot when you look at people.
Not what now?
When you look at people that are given $1 billion for philanthropic things, but putting $100,000 into a local community in the middle of Knoxville, Tennessee, can do wonders.
Dude, hold on. So check this out. So now. See, this is the. So what
go ahead. My wife's calling. She'll call back. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, you better answer that.
I missed it, but she'll call back.
About this, this is live, not live, but this is. I'm not cutting this out neither. So listen, he heard you call, and he muted your call. Now this language, I ain't gonna get you in trouble.
Actually, it was on Do Not Disturb, which I don't know how phone gets through, but I guess her call can get through Do Not Disturb.
It should. See, you know what? See, the Lord know how he work. He work in mysterious ways, and he worked the way he's supposed to. Do Not Disturb. Wives have a chance or have the ability to bypass Do Not Disturb.
It's like that does not equate to me. Well, I want to reach over, reach you.
But so back to what you're saying about like the notion of 36.5 million. Basically, in a calendar year, you want to give $100,000 a day to various, entities or charities, nonprofits, not necessarily major entities, but entities in which $100,000 actually helps them. Because if you look at the vast majority of nonprofit organizations around the country, the vast majority of them, their annual budgets are like 50 grand, 40 grand, 30 grand, something like that. And so, and the challenge is, and this is where it's interesting, like I saw and I like what you're doing, because you're putting money in the hands, or you're desiring to put resources in the hands of those that actually need it. Because when you see like big gifts and big donations, like Jeff Bezos and his ex-wife, Mackenzie, Mackenzie, what's her name? Mackenzie, something.
Yes.
Got her last, huh?
Yes, her.
Yes, yeah. But she.
Hello. Hey. Yeah, I'm doing this podcast. Remember? Yes, whatever you get, that's fine. Okay, love you too. I know she's gonna come back here to get it, but you're right.
Hold on. The reason I was saying is because she gave like $100 million or whatever, and then I remember looking at the requirements for the giving, and I remember sending it to a few of the some nonprofit owners or nonprofit founders that I know, and one of them sent me a thing back and laughed, and he was just like, "Dude, did you look at the requirements to qualify for it and to receive the funds? You had to, I think you had to have at least, is it $1 million or $5 million annual budget? You had like $1 million annual budget, or $1 million annual budget. You needed to be established for like 5 years. You need to have all these different requirements. And so the local small nonprofit didn't even qualify to get some of that hundreds of millions that she was giving out. And so I like the fact that you're focused on that lower tier. And I'm not gonna say lower tier, because that came off is kind of like I'm
direct to consumer.
Yeah, it's more direct to consumer, where the actual 100 grand actually moves the needle for them. Whereas these other ones, 100 grand just, it probably gets lost in the bureaucracy.
I can give $1 million to Susan G. Komen for breast cancer. Since we're in the month of October. Somebody in Brownsville, Tennessee will never see the benefits of me giving $1 million to Susan G. Komen. Somebody in Brownsville, Tennessee who's dealing with cancer. But if I take $100,000 and take it directly and inject it directly into Brownsville, into that cancer community there, probably everybody in Brownsville, and Brownsville is where I grew up, a small town, is going to see a direct benefit from that, who's affected by cancer in that area.
You know what, dude? I think, so it's interesting. So I'm not one, and I've kind of worked through the rethinking of how I move, but then also the rethinking of how I think as it pertains to impact. Because again, the title of this podcast platform is Impact and Fulfillment. And when you're talking about this mission of finding ways to infuse $100,000 a day into 365 nonprofits with a lower operating budget, I'm one that's like, continue to put that idea out into the stratosphere or into the environment or into the ecosystem or whatnot, because you might come to realize that it might not take you having to create, Ace Elite Services into this publicly traded or into this, 9-figure acquired entity to get to a point in which you can get this done. You might have somebody else or some partners who are willing to say like, fam, I like that. And if you're willing to head it up, I have the resources here for you to go ahead and do that, because very few people focus on, again, the non-major, non-highly capitalized, nonprofit entities.
And we already thought along that process. I know that this is going to spur interest from other people who have resources that can aid in this effort. And it's not going to be a one-off for 1 year and then we stop and move on. I know that we're going to be able to generate revenue to where we can do this for years to come and stay small and not become this big thing where the money goes to the masses, where it just comes down but rather where it affects the individual people in these individual communities. But again, as we talked about having the ability to walk into a warm lead versus a cold lead, me building the brand, me getting exposure on a larger basis, me having a platform to say, okay, this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm doing it, is going to make it a whole lot easier for people to come along and say this. Because right now you see entertainers, athletes, people with money. Somebody can say, hey, I'm doing this fundraiser and I'm doing this and I'm doing this telethon. And they call on those people that they know that have money, and those people that have money automatically donate to this charitable organization because of the person who called them asking them to do it. And they have no idea. They have nothing to do with the organization. They have no interest in it. They just say, I know you and I know what you're about and you want this, here's my money. So by me building this and going through this critical mass, it's going to bring exposure. It's going to bring brand recognition. It's going to bring credibility to everything that I want to do after that point.
Dude, I like that. And what's interesting, I mean, it really speaks more so to where your heart is and where it basically is like almost like using Ace Elite Services as an opportunity to create this pathway of directly benefiting the people, right?
Yes.
It's like just using this as a gateway to do so, whether it's direct, whether it's indirect through relationships, whether it's whatever, it opens up this opportunity. And I think it opens up this bigger conversation of how do we directly benefit those that could really use these resources. But the bigger thing is, and this is where, it becomes challenging, because a lot of individuals who do like plan giving and give, extreme amounts of money, there has to be a significant vetting process, right? And the reason why smaller entities don't get direct access to some of these resources is due to the vetting process. So that's why Mackenzie, I forgot her last name, but Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, that's part of the reason why there are so many requirements in place, is that was a default vetting process that I'm not just dumping money into unproven entities who don't have the infrastructure to handle it, who don't have the, the coaching, the board, et cetera, to manage said amounts of resources. And so to your point, I think you even open up a bigger opportunity of maybe creating either a board or creating some type of entity which helps to create the infrastructure for some of these smaller entities, which give them the ability to properly handle larger donations. Because the other part to it is, it's kind of like a very small business. And you've seen this happen before where somebody does like a cash mob at a very small restaurant and all these people lined up to eat. And they like, well, damn, we only got enough chicken for 20 customers. Right. We got 500 people out here, you know, and right. it actually does the reverse, and it doesn't help them. It actually hurts them because they don't have the infrastructure to handle a large influx of resources.
It's going to be multi-layered.
Okay.
And I love it. And I know I don't have the capacity within myself to make this happen. And I'm not happy about Katrina taking place, but I am happy that because it happened, it caused these big entities, FEMA, to pay attention to the mom and pop operations as opposed to the large corporations, because most of the people that were directly affected were these small entities and these small charitable organizations who didn't qualify for mass funding in any other time and period in this history of this country. But FEMA brought it back, was like, we have to give money to them now. And so that's where Lamicia and other people like her came into place, where they had to go and find these companies and vet these smaller companies that don't make $5 million a year, that don't have this, that don't have this, but need an injection of cash. So
you now you hit something, and it's interesting because we don't have to go back almost 20 years, because that was 2005. Hurricane Katrina, damn, that's like almost 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Think about it. So almost 20 years ago, we don't even have to go that far. About 3 weeks ago, because this is being released on
Helene.
Yeah. You got Helene, right? Yep. I'm from Augusta, Georgia. Helene, that was like the epicenter of Helene. Like Augusta, Georgia got depleted. Like trees, houses, all. I mean, it was
Asheville, North Carolina.
North Carolina. Listen, for the longest time, you could only access Asheville by air. So I have a buddy here that's a pilot, and he has his own plane, and so he was flying resources in and out from Knoxville to to Asheville, and he was just talking about how devastating it was. But that was the only way, and he had this little plane that could land on grass strips and take off with short runway and stuff. But that's the only way they could get resources into the Asheville area.
That's crazy.
So, yeah. But to your point, that whole thing with FEMA and resources, there's still some challenges as it pertains to resource distribution and how things are allocated and how people get the direct help that they need. Again, my parents had trees down in the yard. Thank God their house was not damaged, but I have a lot of family friends who are in temporary housing now for the next few months because their houses were completely destroyed, due to Helene. And so,
And so I love creating.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a facilitator, I'm a creator, and I realize that. And so I need help, ideas. I'll be like, hey, I want to build this house tomorrow. Okay, y'all find some people to build it. That's how I am, and I realize that. But I understand that by taking this on, I'm gonna have to hire staff to go and find these organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm gonna have to hire staff that can facilitate the movement of funds from this entity to this organization and all this stuff. Then I have to have a staff that can oversee the displacement of these funds and say, okay, you're going to be in direct contact with this entity in Asheville week by week or month by month. And we've allocated $100,000, but $20,000 is going to go where? $40,000 is going to go where? $10,000 is going to go where? $2,000 is going to go where? And to make sure that the funds are being used for what it was intended to use for throughout the year. So it's going to create job opportunities for a whole lot of people. It's going to create ways for a whole lot of people to give back. And it's going to be a job or it's going to be an experience that has substance to it.
So now this is kind of, it really lines up with regard to, again, the mission of the podcast, impact and fulfillment. What is the thing that spawned your interest in this particular philanthropic endeavor?
Ooh, it's a loaded question. partly my environment where I grew up in. I grew up in a place of 12,000 people. Didn't have access to a lot. I never ate sushi until I got to college. I never, never. I think the biggest, if you went to the Sizzler, Western Sizzler, or if you went to the local steakhouse, then that was high living. We didn't have a mall in our city. The biggest store we had was Walmart. And still to this day, the biggest place in my town is Walmart. So not having access to a lot and not seeing a lot made me naturally want to acquire more. But I think the way that my parents raised me and always having a heart to think of people who are less fortunate than we are. And saying that's coming from me growing up in a place that was a period in our lives where we had an outhouse. So I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth by any means. But even in the conditions that we lived in where we wore hand-me-down clothes, you know, what my brother wore last year to school, I wore this year to school, you know, and stuff like that. And I thought, like, man, we struggling barely to get by. But my parents always put us in remembrance of, like, there are people who are worse off than you are. I'm like, how? You know? But I don't know. God always gave me a heart for people, and it's been a long journey for me to get to this point where I am from a financial standpoint. And I'm 46 years old, but I never wanted to be a hoarder. I'm a minimalist by nature, even in how I decorate and what I acquire. And every time I move, I give away furniture, I give away clothes, I give away this. I don't just pack it and pack it and pack it. But I want as many people as I encounter to enjoy some of the freedoms that I have by not having to worry about finances. And because of that, you look at, and even in the space that I'm in, I see billionaires all the time. But me and my wife, we was out eating last night, and the waiter was telling us, like, hey, this guy right here, he's a billionaire. He's one of my best clients. He's here all the time, and he's this and that. And the guy sitting at the bar lonely. And I was like, I never want to be wealthy and lonely. I said, I don't even want to be poor and lonely. But what good is it to have all these resources if you can't share it and make an impact, a direct impact in your immediate world and in the world in which we live in? So,
dude, I love it. And, you know, it's one of those things where, and this is an interesting perspective. I was listening to Will Smith, and he was doing he was getting interviewed, and it's a clip that circulated, but he said,
like, what else can you do?
Yeah, I know, right? Basically, and he was just saying, he was just like, I wish everybody had the experience that I had, where you get to a place in which there is absolutely nothing in the world that can make you happy. You have access to anything. You have access to everything. You can go anywhere, and you come to realize none of this makes you happy. And it's like, and people trip on it because they're like, well, give me them problems. But he was just like, I wish everybody had that experience, right?
Because it's not fulfillment.
Because it's not fulfillment. I mean, the title of this podcast is Impact and Fulfillment. Impact is the delta of your involvement. Fulfillment is that through line of joy, that thing that allows you to sleep good at night, that thing that really gives you that peace that surpasses understanding. Like, that's what this thing is all about. Our ultimate goal in life is to make an impact, but then to also have fulfillment in the process. A lot of times we focus solely on the impact, so we generate the wealth, but then I talk to people all the time. They got all the money in the world, but they're miserable. Right? On the flip side, you see people who don't have much of nothing, but dude, their life is full of joy. And the reason I said all of that is, you've had a blessed existence, right? Again, you came from Brownsville, Tennessee to where you are now. And we didn't talk a whole lot about the nuances of your story. And if people follow you on social media, they'll be like, well, dang, who sang him happy birthday at his birthday? And who they eating dinner with and where they at and, all this stuff and he married to this and whatever. I mean, people, if they follow you and, we'll give your social media stuff out if it's public or whatever for people to kind of follow your story and everything. But the thing is, you've been able to see the other side of this and to realize that, dang, okay, I don't want to take all this with me. All this stuff doesn't matter. We didn't been LA, Hollywood, all this kind of stuff. All this stuff is a facade. This doesn't make you any better or worse than anybody. You've been with the A-list whatevers, and then you've been with people who ain't got nothing. And guess what? There's really no difference between them.
You know what changed my perspective? Playing football at the University of Tennessee.
Okay.
How did that happen? Obviously, Tennessee is, you play football at Tennessee, you're at the pinnacle of this sport on that level, especially in the 90s with Peyton Manning and Pullis Price and Fred White and Terry Fair and Leonard Little and come on, I could keep going.
Like, yeah, you keep going. You keep going. Hey, look, one of my good bros, man, we talk all the time is Ray Austin. Were you there at the same time as Ray?
When I got there, he was leaving.
He was leaving? Oh, yeah. Ray is my dog.
Yeah. So, and I'm saying this about sports on a whole. If somebody was to mention Warwick Dunn to you right now, you'd be like, man, I remember him. He did this and did this, and where's he at and where's he doing now? Or you mentioned any of the names that I just mentioned that played at Tennessee. A lot of people who have notoriety or who had notoriety or used the man in campus, used the man in school, used the big man on campus in high school, there's an expectation that is placed upon you that you have to live up to with or without your consent. And you're going to be judged by the expectation that was placed upon you and what you did with those expectations. And these are expectations that you didn't even put on yourself necessarily. And so when I looked at it, it's like, man, if I had to change this while I was in college, or I had done this, or if I had done this differently, or I had to make this wrong decision, and if I was rethinking back then, then I could have positioned myself to be in the NFL and to do this and be the big man on campus and all of this. But then I look at some people who were at the top of that, and now you see where they are, but you see a lot of people, even movie stars, athletes, like we just talked about, and I'm seeing all the stuff in Hollywood. People have to live up, or they try to live up to the expectation of what they once were.
Come on.
And the weight that carries is unbearable. That's why you have people overdose on drugs and this and that and get in trouble and, a whole gamut of things. And that can happen without success. People all walks of life can have those problems. What I'm saying is it's sometimes harder for those people to maneuver through life, because the guy that was on the Cosby Show, he was probably happy working at the grocery store.
Come on.
And somebody saw him at the grocery store like, oh my God, look at this. This is so sad. This is this. Man might be enjoying his life away from stardom, away from the limelight, away from all that. But the perception is that, oh, you was on one of the biggest shows.
You must have fallen off.
Or why didn't you take that and expound upon that? And for me, it was like, I'm glad now that things happened the way that they happened at the University of Tennessee, although I am so happy that I was able to experience that, especially at that time, at the height of Tennessee football. That was the critical mass for Tennessee football. I don't care. As much as they do it now, nothing was like it was back
then. 90s. Yeah.
Nothing will ever compare to Tennessee volunteer football in the 90s. Okay, what did they ain't going to win 5 state championships. That's a good compared to the 90s.
People would beg to differ, my boy.
No, I mean,
I know what you're saying.
There, but it was just
it was different.
Elevation was just different. But I've been able to move post University of Tennessee in a way that allowed me to It afforded me the opportunities to mess up.
Mm-hmm.
It afforded me the opportunities to be incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
It afforded me the opportunities to start a business that haven't failed and then restart and fail and restart and fail. It afforded me these opportunities to go through life without outside expectations placed upon me. And so if people saw me, I remember after college, I was working in the mall, in Westtown Mall, at a kiosk, at the Dell Computer kiosk.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the football players that came by, he was going to Build-A-Bear to buy something for his daughter, and he was in the NFL. And I was like, man, that was kind of embarrassing moment. Like, man, he's in the NFL, and we used to play on the same field, and now I'm working at a kiosk in the mall.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized it's like, I don't have the expectation that he has. Or the expectation that's placed on him from the general public is not placed upon me. If he was at this kiosk now, everybody would be looking down on him like, man, you didn't fell off, you didn't did this, you didn't did that. And
but that's other people's expectations, right?
And that's other people's expectations. And you can never escape that when you're in that limelight or you at the pinnacle of whatever it is that you do. Whether you're a childhood musical star, whether you're
whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
But the thing is, it also ties back into rethink the way you move, because the reality is there's a quote, and I don't have the credit to the author of the quote, but the quote is, those convinced against their will are of the same opinion still. Meaning, if somebody has a formulated opinion about something, you're not going to convince them otherwise. So if they see you as always an athlete and they define you from your time at University of Tennessee or your time in the NFL or your time doing this or your time as a successful businessman or your time as a father or as a husband or as whatever the thing is, whatever people formulate their opinion about you, that's how they're going to see you. And there's really not a whole lot you can do to change that, right? The key is to making sure that you don't necessarily pigeonhole yourself in any one phase or segment of life, because time is a continuum that continuously goes on, right? That's definitely number one, is to make sure that you don't pigeonhole yourself. We can't control what other people think about us. The other part to this is everything is cyclical, right? If you really pay attention to it, it's interesting. Even you look at entertainers, athletes, celebrities, even public figures, right? Everything is cyclical and everybody has their run. So case in point, you look at Dr. Martin Luther King. People still talk about Dr. Martin Luther King today. If you really take a look back at his trajectory, for what we talk about, you're only talking about a 12-year span, everything that we're talking about.
Even 5 years, you want to get a little closer.
If you want to get real close, but I mean, you start from like the 1955, the March till 68. I mean, that's 13 years, right? You look at Malcolm X, from what we know and the speeches and the stuff that we saw, you're talking about a 5-year window of the stuff that we remember. But that stuff, that condensed entity it has lasted. You look at Jesus. Jesus was 30 to 33. That's what he did his time. It was not some thousands of years of work.
Look at Tupac. He died at 25.
The Biggie was 26. I'm just saying, when you start looking at it, very few people, and that's why, like, when you see somebody who has like generation, like that's constantly putting stuff out or doing things over the course of 20, 30 years, that's a freaking anomaly, right? Most of the artists that you think about, you're not thinking about them currently. You're thinking about that album they dropped in 96. That's the thing that's still in your mind.
Exactly.
It's not what they're doing
that's
now.
That critical mass point.
Well, yeah, and that's the whole point. And so the reason I'm saying that for people, when you start looking at your life, when it's your time to put your foot on the gas, you got to put your foot on the gas, because this is your window. And the thing is, your window might be 12 months, your window might be 12 years, but more than likely your window is not going to be 70 years. Right. As it pertains to being at, critical mass, being at the top of the spectrum as it pertains to impact and, relevance. And that's why it's so important.
And the reason why I say that, because going back to fulfillment and being able to impact, be impactful. What am I known for?
Right now? Are you asking?
somebody walks through. Do you know Antwuan? Do you know somebody else? How do you know him?
Mm-hmm.
Or what is he known for?
Mm-hmm. Depending on if
Is
they're in
that the director that
transportation.
you can just point to?
Well, but on the flip side, if they're in executive transportation, they might be like, I think I know that brother, man. I saw his billboard in Atlanta, or I know that brother. I think I took his services in that niche industry. But hold on. And I would even sidebar this again. This is our wide-ranging conversation. The thing is, and this is where, like when I coach individuals who are, struggling to put things out publicly, right? They're a little nervous about releasing this and releasing that. And I'm like, dude, even if you got 1 million followers, don't nobody know you. Like that's the part. People don't understand this. There's 8 billion people in the world, right? Even if you got millions of people, I've had videos that have had 20 million views and this and that or whatever. Dude, I'm still unknown. I can walk down the street and nobody knows who I am. You know what I'm saying? Like it is what it is. And that's the whole point.
That's what I was going to say. The goal in life is to know as opposed to be known.
I like that. Yep. To know as opposed to being known. And from the standpoint of power, so, it goes back to the Frank Lucas, the loudest one in the room is typically the weakest one in the room, right? Because, and this by being around truly influential people, the ones who got it ain't got nothing to prove. They're the least likely to put themselves out there. They actually want to pull the spotlight away from them.
There's this family that people who know this family, but every average day person doesn't know this family. And it was brothers specifically in this family. They are some of the most powerful people in this world. Mm-hmm. They were clients of mine. Mm-hmm. I've been in the vehicle with them. The decisions that we think we're going to make on November the 5th, they make these decisions behind closed doors before we even have wind of it.
Yep, absolutely.
I don't know this from hearsay. I know this because I've been in direct communication with these people. Been in the room. You're in the room.
Yeah.
You don't know who these people are.
Mm-hmm.
They're hiding in plain sight.
That's how it's designed. So listen. Listen. So you even think about, it's interesting, like people like the whole mafia movies and mafia shows and all. And yeah, the loud one and all of that gets all the attention. But the one who got all the juice is that little old dude with the fedora on, sitting in the corner, smoking a cigar with them old loafers on, with the newspaper,
right?
Who's sitting outside every day, who people think is somebody's grandpa. That's the shot caller. And the thing
what did the guy from Shark Tank have a check? What did he say?
Oh yeah. That's it. The whole thing about the T-shirt.
Beware the guy in the T-shirt.
That's it. Beware of the guy in the T-shirt. Like, and so to your point, and that's. So I have a theory when it comes to power. Power does not have eyes and ears, only nerve endings, right? Mm-hmm. Because power doesn't see, power doesn't hear. Power only moves when power feels. And you have to have a direct connection, and you have to do something that makes power feel for power to move. So when we do antics, the antics, those are not for people who are influential in power. They don't read that. It's just kind of like if you connect with individuals who are of various socioeconomic status, like mm-hmm. comments. Like if they make posts, they don't read the comments. For a lot of them, they're not even running their social media accounts, right? Exactly. Like you're there on an interview and somebody's having to show them, hey, you see what so-and-so said about you. They're like, oh, okay. I didn't even know that. But then in the comments, it looks like you've been going back and forth with them. That's your company running your social media. I just said all of that to say the antics are a distraction, even like in this. So this is getting released. So we're having this conversation a few days before that, but this is getting released on the Monday of election week. So this is released the day before the United States elections are going down. There's a lot of antics. There's a lot of stuff that's going on. And like Antwuan mentioned, a lot of these decisions have already been made, one, and all the stuff that gets people emotionally triggered is designed for those who are emotionally triggered by antics. And going back to my definition, power doesn't have eyes and ears, only nerve endings. So if your eyes are seeing and ears are hearing and you're triggered by what someone is saying, their point, they basically accomplish their goal because they're keeping you distracted. Because
and people don't want to hear that conversation. They think it's conspiracy theories. They think it's this. They think it's like, well, no, this, and this, and the third. And they think that like Gladiator is one of my favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
And Marcus Aurelius' wife, no, daughter, who was in love with the gladiator,
Mm-hmm.
she said, "You control the mob, you control Rome."
Come on. Come
And
on.
the mob was the people in Rome, and it was chaotic. And
Mm-hmm.
you show them great antics and theatrics in the Colosseum, you control Rome.
Hold on. Let's take it even a step further. The concept bread and circus. Bread and
Give the
circus.
people bread,
Give the people bread
entertain them.
and keep them entertained. So basically, that's where we get the whole concept of keep them fat and happy, right? You keep the people fat and happy, they'll stay out your way, and you don't have to rethink the way you move. You can just move the way you want to because the people are fat and happy and they're out the way. And see, these are things that once you start navigating in circles where you do connect with individuals of significant influence and power, you see that they're just people like everybody else, but they do move differently. That's the
Absolutely.
part that is, and that's why again, rethink the way you move is such a powerful statement. It's that yes, everybody, we're all created equal. God loves us all, and just because you got money, you know better or worse than anybody. But when you pay attention and you study, I love to study people. I love to read bios. I love to
Oh
look
yeah.
at individuals. When you study individuals, you can point out, oh, this one got the juice because they move differently. It's not
Absolutely.
about what they're driving. It ain't about what they're wearing. It's not about who they don't care about the cars. They can buy 1,000 of them. Who cares about that?
It's how they navigate.
It's how they navigate. It's the stuff that they allow to get to them. Like again, so check this out. I was at a place the other day and we were having lunch and this dude walked up and basically after the guy walked away, the dude I was sitting with at lunch said, "You know who that is?" And I was like, "No." He was like, that building down near UT, the name, that's the guy. I was like, "Oh." He was like, "Oh yeah, he has FU money." I was like, "Really?"
Right.
Yeah. And so what he said was, he was just like, when I say FU money, like he's the one that if he doesn't agree with something, he's like, "Yo, that's bullshit," and he'll just call it straight out. Or if he likes something, he's all in. If he likes you, it's great, great relationship, etc. But if he doesn't hold punches. He'll tell you straight up, this is bullshit. I don't like it. I don't like that. I'm not going here, because there's nothing you can financially do to him because he has FU money. Right. And I thought through the lens of, in our society, we put such a premium on the tangible wealth, right? That people don't feel comfortable operating with integrity and speaking truth until they get to a point of having FU money. And I thought through the lens of, what if we had FU faith in how we operate? Meaning, I'm going to operate in integrity, not because I got, multiple commas at my disposal at all times, but because I have this level of faith and confidence in who I am and who I'm created to be, that I'm going to speak truth. I'm going to be honorable. I'm going to have integrity. I'm going to walk in power. And I'm going to own the room because I know that nobody in here is created any better than me. Nobody's any worse than me. But I'm also not going to put my power simply in my net worth. And I think that's where societally we have priorities kind of out of whack, because we feel as if you get to a certain financial status, then now you have the right to operate in purpose and operate in power. I'm like, no, you could be broke as a joke. You should still walk in power because of who you created to be, who God made you to be.
I don't think that's a societal issue. I think that's a demographic issue. What I mean by that is that we are me and you, our generation is the first generation in our culture and our ethnicity that was able to not only go to higher education and beyond, but then have the means and the ability to operate in the open market in terms of investments, in terms of the stock market, in terms of this, without judgment or impunity, or without being cast down, if that were.
No, real talk. You got to think about it.
Other ethnicities have been doing this for centuries.
Yeah.
We're just now coming into where, now I know Madam C.J. Walker was a billionaire by her standards and all that stuff, but
that's an exception.
That's an exception. We are now coming to the point where you can go down the street or go into any city and see a black millionaire, see black billionaires. We're just now learning how to spend money. Back when my parents were growing up, like, you know, you had to go uptown. You had to put on a suit, dress up to go uptown, put on your Sunday clothes to go uptown to go to the market.
That's right.
Now you walk in the workplace with tennis shoes and sweats and, you know, whatever. It was a status thing. Or if you had a Cadillac, like, man, he didn't reach where he's driving a Cadillac on the weekend to church and all that stuff. It was a status thing. And our people, we assimilate wealth with what you can buy. We assimilate status by what you have, what you drive, and all that stuff. Other ethnicities have been well beyond that. Now they see their wealth in their name on the building, or their name on this campus, or their name of this, or them buying this island, or them being able to give $1 billion to this charitable organization. We're not there yet. We're still trying to drive the Bentley.
Well, yeah, well, again,
as a host.
but it's interesting. So I have a young guy here, and you know, he comes from a family that has some significant, you know, resources or whatnot. But we talked the other day, and he was saying, he said, Mike, when it comes to wealth, if it doesn't give you space and access, it's pointless. He's like, the only reason for it is it gives you more space or it gives you access. Outside of that, it's really pointless. It's not about showing it, because it's just like, okay, if you can buy 100 Bentleys, it's not impressive for somebody to drive up in a Bentley. You're just like, dude, there's a guy, I don't know if you're familiar with him. His name is Ray. He created the company Myrna, that ultimate concierge service. What's his name? Ray. God dang it, I forgot. I'm gonna have to look his name up. Hold on, I'm gonna look his name up real quick, because
why are you looking this name up? I'm glad you said that. About you can buy 1 million Rolls Royces, 100 Rolls Royces, then it's like whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
And backstory, people don't know that the last time that I owned a Rolls Royce, I was going to meet you and your wife for lunch in LA.
Dude, listen.
Crashed the car, and that was the last time I owned one. And then I was talking to my brother yesterday, and I said, I get a fulfillment in driving this type of vehicle. It's not the most expensive, this, that, and the other, third. And I said, because when you drive a Rolls Royce, I don't care wherever you go, you're going to be overdressed.
That's right.
It's going to be ostentatious, and you're going to be overstated. If you're in a Rolls Royce, there is nowhere you can go and you're going to fit in.
Come on. No, you stand out.
One single place that you can drive your Rolls Royce to and you're going to fit in. You're going to stand out. You're going to stick out like a sore thumb wherever you go. And I'm so glad that you called me to go to lunch. And
dude, so hold on. Okay, sidebar. So I gotta tell the quick story, and I gotta go and pick up the kids in a second. But I gotta tell that story. So we were in LA, and this was like what, 2018, what was that? 2018,
2018,
something like that. So we were going to eat. We were out in Los Angeles, and we were like, man, let's go get some lunch. So me and my wife, you know, we're going to meet Antwuan to come get some lunch. And so we were sitting there waiting, and he texted me. He was just like, yo, I just had an accident, man. I was like, uh-oh, you all right? Whatever. He was like, yeah, I'm good. But the car looks like it's totaled or whatnot. And so, but he was like, I still want to do lunch. So I'm going to take an Uber and come meet y'all at lunch. He was driving a brand new Rolls Royce, got T-boned at a corner. But then he went from the Rolls Royce to an Uber to come meet us for lunch. Great lunch. He was going to call an Uber to go back to the crib. And we were like, well, we can drop you off. I mean, we got the car. And we were driving this old 1992 Honda Civic that my in-laws just had at the crib just to kind of bum around town in. No air conditioner and all of that. And Antwuan was driving a brand new Rolls Royce, but he left the restaurant, had to sit sideways because the back seat was so small, in a 1992 white Honda Civic that didn't have no air conditioner, that had manual hand roll the windows down.
True story.
To drive back to the crib. So it's like you came in a Rolls Royce, you left in a 1992 Honda Civic, and guess what? We had a good time nonetheless.
Great time. And I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm going home. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, no, I'm hungry. Let's go eat.
Yeah, I'm hungry. Let's go eat.
I'll be there in a minute.
That's it.
But
I tell that story too because it shows people and it shows the whole notion of it doesn't matter. It's all still transportation. Now, again, some people in the cars, you're in the cars. It is what it is.
yeah.
But it's the whole notion of we're all the same. We're all people. We all enjoy good things, but we're also not above jumping in the backseat of an old school Honda Civic to get where we got to go.
Come on, man. Not love it. And it's funny. I know who I am,
mm-hmm.
and I know my worth, and I know where I'm headed to. And sometimes I'll be in a place or I'll be somewhere. I remember the other day, and my wife sometimes she was like, "You going outside, Wrinkle?" I'm like, "Yep, I'm just going to Home Depot." And I'm in there and I'm grabbing, some wood because I just built a fence because we brought our dog out here, so building the fence and all this stuff. I could hire somebody to do it. I'm a country boy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to go find me a dually and drive around town in the dually. But it's like the person that's looking at me picking up this lumber or whatever probably has no idea of my worth or my value or who I am or whatever. And that's not even the point. The point is, it's like I am content in going to Home Depot in a pickup truck and picking up some lumber to come back and make a fence, regardless of how much money I have, regardless of how much money I don't have, regardless of my status in this world or whatever the case may be. But by me never losing sight of that, or my dad, he passed away, instilling to me, it's like, man, the only thing that matters in life is your family and the joy that you have spending time with them.
Come on now.
That's it.
Dude, listen. It's nothing more. It's like, again, and it's cool. Like, I mean, wealth is a game, right? You go and you create and do your thing, have some fun, build some stuff, impact a lot of people. It's a game. What it really comes down to is, how do you impact the lives of others? How do you find joy in the process? Do you leave things better than you found them, right? And how do you make somebody's day a little bit brighter, right? And then when you start thinking about legacy, you start thinking about kids, it's just like, how do I model things with my wife so that my son sees how a man's supposed to treat a woman? How do I model things with my wife so my daughter recognizes how a woman is supposed to be treated by a man? How do we create opportunities for them to grow and become the best version of who they are so that they can ultimately live their purpose that God's placed inside of them? Like, how do we, dude, it was a time I went to a grocery store one day and I was on my earbuds, was talking to somebody, and I was passing through the grocery store and this lady came by and she was trying to get by, and I just smiled at her because I couldn't talk because I had earbuds in. I smiled at her and said, "Okay, you can go by." She chased me down like 3 rows at the grocery store. She was in tears and she said, "I've had such a shitty day. You don't know how much your smile meant to me." Yeah. What I'm saying is, it's just like little things like that it's like, how do you do that continuously throughout the day? How do we light the torches of others or light the candles of other people? That's what this thing is all about, man. Because when we shut it down, when our eyes close for the last time and we go on to spend time with Jesus for eternity, dude, when we want to get that "well done, my good and faithful servant."
That's how this come out.
I also want to be known that whatever he gave me, I used it to the fullest capacity. That's it.
And that's so you said, what spread that on? That's what I want to do. And that's why, I want to rethink how I move so that I can be impactful and have fulfillment.
Come on.
That's it. Every time somebody asks me, somebody be like, "Hey man, how you doing?" Go to the store, like, "How you doing today?" My response is every single time, I'm above ground.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Anything else that happens in life that day, I can deal with. I'm above ground.
That's right.
Which means I still have time to be impactful, still have time to make meaningful change, still have time to find fulfillment.
Dude,
that's it.
Listen, man. Listen, I gotta go pick the
Always
kids
a pleasure,
up
man.
anyway. Yeah, but dude, so listen. So as far as contact info and all that stuff, I'm gonna put in the show
on any platform. Ace Elite
Okay, gotcha. Ace Elite Services,
LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram.
Gotcha. So listen, and it's in the show notes. So y'all make sure to follow Ace Elite Services, all platforms. If you're needing airport transfers, specifically in Atlanta or Los Angeles, if you got a corporate entity that needs a lot of black car services, reach out to my dude, man.
Let's grow. Let's
grow, man.
Let's grow the impact.
Hey, listen, man. I'm super proud of you, man. Keep up the good work, brother. Keep up the good work. And so because y'all are now bi-coastal between Atlanta and LA, I don't know, during Christmas, are we gonna see y'all on the West Coast, or y'all
we'll figure it out.
Figure it out. We'll connect.
But we'll be in Knoxville. We might not be able to be there for homecoming, but we'll be in Knoxville soon. And then we'll cross paths.
Yeah. Hit me up. Let me know. We'll get together, do dinner, let wives meet each other, and all that kind of stuff. All right, brother. Hey, man, proud of you, man. Keep up the good work, man. Too. All right, man. Hey, listen, everybody, make sure to follow Coach Mike D across all social media. Make sure to follow my man Ace Elite Services everywhere on social media. Grab a copy of my book, The 33 Laws of Impact and Fulfillment. Actually, grab a copy of Antwuan's book, Rethink How You Move. Is that currently on Amazon as well?
Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Rethink the Way You Move. You see
Rethink the Way You Move. So listen, y'all got 2 books to buy. The 33 Laws of Impact and Fulfillment and Rethink the Way You Move. All right. Well, y'all be blessed, well, and wise. And I'll holler at you. All right. Peace. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and follow Coach Mike D everywhere on social media. Y'all be blessed, well, and wise.